Hello and welcome to Indianomics. I'm Lata Venkatesh. Aside from the US Fed, the big worry for the Reserve Bank and the Monetary Policy Committee in the upcoming policy may be food prices. Look at the April to August reading of cereals prices. This is worrying because for the past 4 years, cereals have not been a worry at all. Look at the chart showing cereals inflation from 2020 onwards. It has spiked only this year, April to August. And this spike in cereals has led to an overall spike in food CPI this year. Look at the graph. It's much higher in the month of August than in the current year than it was a year ago. What's worse is global food prices have been rising sharply in the last 2 years. Look at the index put out by the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, or FAO. But fortunately, the FAO index has been declining in the last 3 months. That is, from June onwards, it looks like the worst is over, looking at the global index. But is the worst over, or will Indian cereal prices remain elevated? Should we worry about food CPI? Let us ask two experts, Dr. Ashok Gulati, Infosys Chair Professor at the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations, ICRIER, and Dr. Ramesh Chand, member of the NITI AAYOG, both among the best agricultural economists in the country, or maybe even in the world. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Dr. Chand, let me start with you. This August spike in both cereals and food inflation was a bit worrisome. Is it over, the hump over? How do the prospects look for September and beyond?
You see, there is a shortfall of 4% in area under rice compared to what was the area shown under rice last year. But rice is one crop where we have highest surplus. Our production last year was 130 million ton, and we require around 108, 110 million ton for production. So because of the shortfall in area and also because of delayed sowing, if there is some shortfall in yield, the maximum ton rice surplus from the current year's production. So I feel that there is no worry as far as food requirement in the country is concerned. But inflation can happen despite normal production, even despite above normal production, because of several reasons. As you know, that we are a large surplus. That is one reason that our prices are integrated with international prices. Therefore, some influence of international prices has to be there on the domestic prices. But one big factor which is affecting food inflation across the world, in India and elsewhere, is the prices of agrochemical, prices of fertilizer, prices of insecticide, prices of pesticides, which are related to energy prices also to some extent. If you look at prices of P, prices of K, phosphatic and potassic fertilizers, they have skyrocketed. Government of India has absorbed the increase in prices of urea. But as far as increase in potassic and phosphatic fertilizer and other agrochemical are concerned, so you will just find that that will get transmitted into the cost of production and therefore on a supply side. So this is something which is adding to the normal rate of increase in prices. And you know that MSP of most of the crops, government announced 4 to 6% increase. Then this extra increase in cost of production, which is unexpected, that is also contributing. Plus this third factor that our domestic market is not insulated, even though we declared a ban on broken rice, regulating export through export duty. But still, you know that export will happen. Already, I think more than 7 million ton of rice has been exported out of country. So these are the factors which are contributing to food inflation. But I feel that we should look at our track record on food inflation after looking at what is happening to global food prices, what is happening to prices in other countries. You have shown the FAO price index, that how that index is there, how those prices are increasing.
Okay.
In fact, Lataji, we were expecting price inflation to cool down in the month of September. And on 10th September, suddenly, when news of poor harvest of corn, poor harvest of soybean, harvest of so many grains came from USA, prices in international market, if you look at data on 9th, 10th, 11th September, it just shot up by 5 to 8%. And that is what got transmitted to domestic prices also. And that is the reason that this inflation is becoming a cause of worry. But whatever measure need to be taken, as you are seeing, that government is not leaving any stone unturned to see to it that that we need to ensure that food prices remain affordable for consumers.
I take your point. That's what Dr. Gulati started with, that the government has been able to provide a kind of a net, at least for the lowest classes. But Dr. Gulati, I hope you could hear Dr. Chand. We had a slight problem with your line. The factors that Dr. Chand mentioned, fertilizer prices being skyrocketing, these, are they already in the price, or can they continue to keep food inflation high in the country, cereals inflation high?
Yeah, the issue of fertilizer pricing, especially urea, the urea price has not been increased for the farmers. It has been absorbed in the subsidy by the government. Some others have increased a little bit. So I don't think it's a major factor behind Indian cereal prices going up. Yes, expectations play a very important role, and that's where situation is that in case of wheat, our stocks had been depleting very fast, and in case of rice, if we continue with free food 10 kilograms per person, then even the existing stocks will deplete, and that plays a bit of role in this. And the monsoon being somewhat not very even, that has created a situation where the expectations that the coming crop may not be very good. And therefore, there is a price pressure. So all these factors combined, you are worried about cereal prices, but if you look at the contribution to CPI inflation in August, the highest contribution is coming from kerosene. The PDS kerosene, 87% increase, and given the weight of it and all that, followed by milk. And then you have vegetables. Vegetables is a worry on which you don't have much of control. Yes. They are very volatile. So you have to go beyond cereals to understand the structure of CPI inflation and what you can do and what you can't really do.
No, I was coming to the other questions, sir. I was coming to vegetables in just a minute. But before that, do you think that the high cereal inflation and, as you say, inflation expectation because of the news from abroad or because of what Dr. Chand said, expectations that subpar monsoon in some regions can impact the Rabi crop. Because of that, do you think there can be second round inflation on animal feed, and because of animal feed on milk, and because of milk and maybe atta and maida, can it also impact packaged food? So do you expect second round inflation?
Yes, sure, of course. But you said Rabi inflation or Rabi crop may be adversely impacted. In fact, you have all the reservoirs at a pretty good, comfortable storage capacity of water. So Rabi, we will be expecting a better crop despite a somewhat lower crop in Kharif. So on the whole, it will even out on that front. But yes, cereal prices and especially soybean side, if we include the part of the oil meal, because that impacts your livestock feed prices. it's corn and soya basically that go in a much bigger way towards the livestock sector. And if they are under pressure, then of course you will have higher livestock products inflation and prepared meals inflation. So that will be under pressure.
Okay. Well, Dr. Chand, similar question to you. You think there is still some more second round to come? And you also alluded to fertilizer. Is it absorbed, the non-urea fertilizers, or can there be further increases?
No, non-urea, only DAP to some extent is absorbed. Other kind of potassic and phosphatic fertilizer, they are part of nutrient-based subsidy, so not fully absorbed, and their prices have really gone very, very high. But your question relating to second round of inflation, I think you also mentioned about feed, but I would say that we have some good news on front of crops, which are main source of livestock feed. Both soybean as well as maize, you just find that maize area, core cereal area is much higher than what it was last year. So I feel that as far as feed is concerned, the prices may not cereals. But coming to the second round mean after Kharif, when it comes to Rabi, several factors are important. But the point which Professor Gulati mentioned, that the level of reservoir is 18% higher than what is the average of last 10 years. And also, according to some meteorologists, some La Nina phenomena. So we can expect good rainfall in the month of October and November, which occurs very well for Rabi sowing. So I do not see this second round of inflation making inflation more severe or putting us into a inflation or high inflation spiral. I do not see that kind of situation arising in case of India.
Okay, on that cautiously optimistic note, I'm going into a break, coming back in a minute for more on what the global trends are and how things can shape up on the whole in the headline inflation front. Back in a minute.